Hey everyone, this is Miff, your life and performance coach, and welcome to the Actually You Can podcast. On this show, we discuss strategies for growth for ambitious individuals so you can spark and initiate your next evolution. You'll hear from inspiring guests who will share their journeys, challenges, and lessons learned. And I'll be sharing insights and actionable takeaways from my aligned results framework that will help you to align your goals, mindset, and strategies to reach your highest potential. Be sure to hit subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to so you can easily find this podcast again and stay updated with new episodes dropping every week. In this episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Cassie Howard, an intuitive business and money mentor who is passionate about helping people create a life of freedom. Cassie has built a multiple 8-figure brand and brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our discussion today. Cassie shares her journey in business and how she has used a combination of strategy and energetics to achieve her incredible success. She also shares strategies and tools she uses with her own coaching clients and what challenges they face on their way to realizing their own limitless potential. This isn't your average business podcast, and I loved this refreshing and inspiring approach to business and money, and I feel so privileged to be able to share it with you today. So buckle up. This promises to be an extraordinary ride. Thank you for joining the show, Cassie. It's such a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this.
And so we're going to be talking about how you can build an 8-figure business. You are a phenomenal woman in business, and I'm super excited to dive into your business journey. And before we go into that, I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself. Who is Cassie Howard?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? I'm somebody who it's like when somebody asks me, "Who are you? What do you do?" What is like, I never know what to say because I'm so into all the things. Like I'm very multi-passionate about so many different things. But what I love more than anything is helping people to create a life of freedom. And I tend to speak a lot to women, but of course I'm open to supporting anyone who wants to create a life of freedom. But my life is really centered around that. It is obviously creating freedom for myself and being an example of that, and then supporting my clients, my followers all over the world, how they can create that themselves.
And it's such an interesting question because when anyone asks me that sort of thing too, that's my initial reaction. Do you even start? Like, do you just go, this is what I do for a job, or like, this is my family composition or anything like that? It's such a broad question, which is why I also love asking it, because I think how you've approached it really shares a lot about yourself. And so building on from that, I'm really curious to hear, you mentioned helping people to live a life of freedom. What does freedom mean to you?
Freedom to me means limitlessness, like limitless choices. You get to be, do, and have anything you want. There's no restrictions. There's no one telling you you can't. It's just, I want this and now I have this, like that kind of freedom, whether it's time freedom, location freedom, lifestyle freedom, financial freedom, any kind of freedom. Like that's really what I'm about.
And have you always felt free, or are there periods of your life where that wasn't the case?
Definitely not. Yeah, no. And in fact, most of my life, I did not feel that free at all, which is why I think I've become so passionate about helping other people to create that. Because for me, when I had all of these restrictions and all of the things that I couldn't do, or at least I was told that I couldn't do, I always felt really negative. Like I felt like, well, what's the point of living if all I have to do is like work, pay my bills, go to sleep, wake up and do it all over again? Like, I don't want that. I want a life where I can do whatever I want. And sometimes it's going to be work. I love to work, but I also want to do other things. I want to have the freedom to do that. And so it's been my passion since I was really young to create first and foremost financial freedom so that I could then create the other freedom that I wanted.
And you mentioned you didn't want to just wake up, have a job, pay your bills, that sort of stuff. And so was there a particular catalyst where, I mean, I'm assuming there was one point where you had one of those jobs where you literally had jobs to pay bills. Was there a catalyst where you're like, this shit needs to change? Like, I can't keep doing this anymore? Or was it a gradual process over time? You just had this innate knowing that life wasn't for you and you're always working towards achieving that level of freedom?
I feel like it was both. Like, I feel like it's always been there, but it wasn't always super strong, that feeling until so I had this company where, so first of all, I worked in the adult industry and I had this company in the adult industry that eventually it just wasn't, I wasn't in love with it as much anymore as I was in the beginning. And so I wasn't doing it as much anymore. I wasn't as passionate about, so I wasn't making much money from it. And then I had all of this debt. And I was like, okay, well, now I have all this debt. I have all these bills to pay. Now I have to actually do something to make this money to pay these bills. And I don't even want to because I don't like these bills and all of that. And I was like, I wish I could just snap my fingers and make the bills go away. Meaning I had the money to just here, pay the bills, done. Now I can do whatever else I want. So that was kind of the moment for me. I just didn't really realize it until years later.
And so you mentioned you've had previous companies before. What businesses have you had and do you have currently?
Oh, geez. Well, I had the adult industry for sure. I had starting businesses. Adult industry, I had a cupcake business for, I want to say a week because I had one customer, my first ever customer ordered 500 cupcakes that I had to make in my house with my one little oven. And I was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. This is too much. So that didn't work for me. So I had the cupcake business for about a week. I had my couponing business, Frugal Living. It was a website slash business. I had a tea company, which is what I have now, a matcha tea company, and my coaching business as well.
Yeah. And so I met you through the coaching business space and knowing that you had these other companies beforehand. I'm curious to hear what was the transition from having the product-based businesses to becoming a service-based coaching business? Was that seemingly a natural transition for you, or is that something you're always passionate about? How did your coaching business get off the ground?
Well, I always found that the product based businesses, and I still personally feel this way to this day, the product based businesses are a lot harder, especially when you have to hold inventory, which we do for our tea company. And so the service base is so easy, in my opinion, because you don't really have any kind of overhead. It's just you and you sell your services. And so going into the coaching space, I actually went from the couponing slash frugal living industry into coaching because my blog at that time, mostly it was about saving money. But then I started to talk about how to make more money. And one of the things I talked about when it came to making more money was making money blogging, because that's what I was doing at the time because I got paid ads and affiliate and stuff like that. So people were starting to ask me more and more, how do I start a blog? How do I make money with my blog? And then at one point, somebody said, you should just be a business coach and teach people how to have a business online like you. And that's kind of how I was introduced to it. And then I went and started exploring what is this whole coaching industry, never heard of it before, and kind of fell into this big, huge black hole. And I have not come up for air yet, but I'm glad. It's one of my favorite industries I've ever discovered.
And what do you love about it? What do you love about the coaching industry?
Well, the freedom, number one, is that it's because you are the coach, the business is you. Like you get to create whatever kind of business that you want based on your own knowledge, your own experience, your own skill. And then, of course, like I get to help people do the thing that I've always wanted to help people do, which is to create that life of freedom and to create a business that has an impact in the world in some capacity as well. So it fulfills all of my desires that I've had since I was really young.
And what sort of people do you work with within your coaching business?
Work with a wide range of people, but I find that most of my clients, especially in closer proximity, like one on one and my masterminds, I tend to have a lot of women who are very bold and audacious in the sense of they want to essentially take over the world in a positive way, take over the world with their businesses and their services and how they help people. They have really big dreams, things that they want to do, what they want to create. They're very ambitious. They're very self led. They're very, in integrity with what they say. So if they're posting about one thing, they're actually doing that one thing instead of just saying it and then not doing it behind the scenes. And it's so much fun because all the clients that I attract into my closer proximity spaces are very much like me. So at first it was a little weird because it was like us hanging out with myself, which felt odd in the beginning. And now it's like, it feels very, very natural because we get along so well because we understand each other on such a deep level.
And for someone who's not too familiar, I guess, with the term business mentor, or I know we talk a lot about energy and intuition when it comes to some mentorships too. I'd love for you to describe what would it feel like to be part of Cassie Howard's world?
It depends on the capacity. So in close proximity, it's very much like it's a client-led experience. And so obviously I'm there, but my client comes in and they ask for the support that they want. They come in. A lot of times my clients will come into our calls or our Voxer space and they'll celebrate something that's happened in their business or in their life. And, we'll do some strategy and stuff like that because I'm very big on strategy. And it's very much just like a back and forth relationship. Whereas in my programs and trainings and stuff like that, I'm the one who's leading the conversation. And so I'm teaching on whatever kind of subject it is under the umbrella of business, whether it's content or sales or money or growing an audience, that kind of thing. And in those spaces, it's very much strategy focused. I do touch on mindset and energetics because obviously they're important and they go together with strategy. But strategy is my main zone of genius. It's what I'm really good at. It's what I'm known for. And so that tends to be very heavy in my program.
And I hear a lot in the coaching space. I mean, one of the beauties about the coaching space is it's super accessible. And I guess one of the things about the coaching space that I find myself challenging with is you can literally call yourself any type of coach. There's no rules and regulations around it. And so you hear terms like energetics or intuition being thrown around and you're like, what does that even mean? And I know you do it so beautifully. So I'd love to hear from you. How do you combine the logical elements like strategy and then intuition, energetics as part of your work? Is there a split? Is it 70% strategy, 30% energetics, that sort of stuff? Or how do you approach it?
So I find that with my one-on-one stuff and my masterminds, it's probably a good 50-50 split. But in my programs and where I'm actually teaching something, I would say it's a good 90% strategy, 10% energetics and mindset. It's still there because it's still part of it, but it's not the main piece that I speak to. There's other coaches who strategy is 10% for them and energetics or mindset is 90%. And for me, it's the opposite.
And I think the listeners will have a really good understanding of what a strategy is, what mindset means. What would you say is a 2-second summary about what energetics means in business?
To me, energetics is feelings. So it's how you feel about something. And energetics is something for myself that I didn't understand for many, many years. I was pretty much all strategy and maybe a tiny little bit of mindset. But once I actually understood energetics, which is essentially just how you feel, everything changed in my business. And that's when my business actually started to quantum leap in terms of the growth that I was experiencing.
And what did that journey look like for you? Was it someone who introduced it to you? Was it something you came across? How did you dive into the world of energetics in business?
It was one of those things where I'd heard about it before and I kind of laughed about it. I'm like, that's silly. Like ceilings, really? That's not going to make me money. I want to know how. Teach me how. Give me the step-by-step way. And I was able to grow my business to around like 50K months, which was fantastic. And I did that with the majority of my stuff was strategy, like no energetics whatsoever. And I was like, if I'm ever going to go beyond this, there's something else. Like there's something I'm not tapping into. And I just remember one day going like, fuck it. I'm going to do the energetics thing. Fine. And I will prove to you guys that it's silly and it doesn't actually make a difference. And I made that decision. And then like the next day or 2 days later, I came across this woman on Instagram. I had no idea who she was, never heard of her before in my life. And she was, I don't know if she called herself an energy coach, but that's how I saw her. And there was just something about her energy that I felt. And I was like, I think she's the one to help me with this. And I just messaged her on Instagram and I asked her if I could work with her one-on-one. And I just paid right away. It was like $30,000 or something like that. I was like, This is silly, but okay, I'm going to do it to prove a point. And the next month, I went on to have $167,000 month from like consistent 50K months back to back to back to back to back for so long. So like, okay, I guess this whole energetic stuff does actually work. And that was it. Like it all just kind of started there and I dove in head first.
And hearing what you're saying, I feel like if you've decided something, then you move quickly and shit happens. Is that pretty much right?
100%. Yeah. I don't even give myself a second to think about it because I myself personally, I'm not saying that's bad, but for me, it's bad because if I give myself time to think about something, I will always talk myself out of it. Always. And in some cases, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe that's not the right decision that I would have made. But 9 times out of 10, it's the right decision. And that's why I had the intuitive hit to actually do it in the first place. So I just trust myself and I go. And even if it doesn't end up being what I wanted it to be, it's still valuable because I still learned something from that experience.
And I have the pleasure of talking to such incredible individuals on this show, and the ability to make quick decisions seems like it's a really common theme amongst people who have achieved really big shit. And so I'm interested to hear from you. Have you always had that confidence in yourself to be able to make those quick decisions, those important decisions, or that confidence in your decision making ability something you fostered over time?
100%. I've always been this way. Always. Since I was a kid, I've always been this way. And I'm grateful because I know that it's difficult for some people, but it has been just something that's been a part of me for as long as I can remember.
Yeah. And so you've had such extreme growth in your business. Approximately how long have you been in your business, and what has been some of the growth that you've achieved during that time, just to give the listeners some context?
So I started in February of 2015. So whatever the math is on that, don't make me do it on the spot. Many, many years that I've been doing it. And my first year in business, I just really hit the ground running. I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go all in. And ended up doing $250,000 cash my very first year in a brand new industry. So I was very excited about that. And then went on to do 500,000 the next year, just shy of another 500 the year after that. And then I went through a crash and burn period, we'll call it, where I really worked in a very like not sustainable way. And so everything just kind of blew up in my face. And so I plummeted. Everything just dropped. And I was there for probably a year and a half, building things back up again. And then eventually got to the consistent 50K months. I did that for a long time. And that's where I really had this desire. I don't even know why, for 100K months. It was like 50K to 100K. Like that's my next milestone. And it took me years to get there. And I didn't have that first 6-figure month until I actually did the energetics work that first month. And then things just took off from there. I did 6-figure months for many months after that, then went to 200, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 so over months from there and just have continued to quantum leap. It's been wild how fast things have happened, but in reality, they didn't happen that fast. They happened fast eventually, but they happened really slow in the beginning. And I think that's where a lot of people, they just see the surface level of, oh, you went from here to here in 1 year. Yes. But I also went from way at the bottom and it took me many years to get to a good like base level before I could then quantum leap into these huger numbers.
100%. And you had your other businesses, you knew business. You weren't coming into this blind, and you had, as you
Exactly.
mentioned, that crash and burn year as well. I'm sure you learnt a shit ton during that time.
Yes.
What's some lessons that you learned during that time?
Where do I even begin? I mean, my biggest thing, because it was a lot of money stuff for me back then, I wasn't very good with managing money. I received money relatively fast, like making $250,000 in a year was a lot for me. I was accustomed to doing like 100,000 in a year. So 250 and then 500, like it just came in so fast and I wasn't prepared for it. And so a lot of it just kind of went right back out like immediately into like all kinds of stupid stuff, great stuff, but also a lot of stupid stuff. And that's when everything plummeted. So I had to learn a lot about money. I had to understand money on like practical level. I had to understand money on an energetic level. And the other thing I would say too is like the sustainability piece of all of it, the business in general. Money business was built on I have this thing, sell this thing. I have this thing, sell this thing. I want to make money, sell this thing. I want to make more money, sell another thing. And then I would get sick and I'd be sick for a week and a half and I'd make no money because my business was not set up that way. It was set up in a way where I had to do something to make money, which obviously is not sustainable. So I had to learn a lot about like actually building a solid foundation in business so that when shit hits the fan, because it will multiple times in our lives, then the money is still coming in, the business is still growing, things are still happening. So there was a lot of work I had to do there too to build something that was actually sustainable.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned building something that is actually sustainable. And did you have some support to do that? How did you go about learning those tools?
I did and I didn't because I didn't have somebody who I was like, okay, I need to build a sustainable business. What do I need to do? I didn't really have that because this was after I had made a whole bunch of money and then lost like over $1 million. So I actually had a brief period where I didn't have a coach or mentor or nothing. So I had nobody that I could actually go to. So a lot of work that I did to really understand building like business foundations and something that was sustainable long term was actually through just a lot of YouTube videos and books from the library, like all kinds of stuff like that, that I kind of got the basics anyway. And then once I was making more money again, then I started to hire coaches and mentors again because I know the value of that. And then I went into it deeper with them. And then I had support at that point. But it started with no support from a specific person, but support from books and online articles and stuff like that, which was helpful to an extent.
And it sounds like apart from being very entrepreneurial, you're also incredibly resourceful. You make a decision, you just do
Yeah.
whatever you need to do to make shit happen. And I feel like that's probably one of the qualities that have made you such an incredible business person, an incredible coach as well. What other qualities would you say you've learned about yourself perhaps during that crash and burn period that have made you the person that you are today?
I think the biggest one for me was determination and resilience and being resourceful, obviously. But in addition to that, that determination and that resilience and that relentlessness where it was like, okay, so what? I messed up. I had to learn some lessons. This is part of business. It's part of growth. It's part of life. You've got to learn. Nothing's going to be perfect forever. Like I had to give myself some serious pep talks because it did feel like crap when it happened, obviously. And I wasn't too proud of it, but it got me to where I am. So it was worth it in the end, but I had to be very resilient because there was so many things that were against me. People were against me. Like my family was like, this is a bad idea. Don't do this again. It's going to happen again. Nobody really understood. I didn't really have that support. I wasn't really surrounded by people who understood it. So it was basically like I was a one woman show to a certain point. Like I had to basically prove it to myself by being all in, even when it seemed like it wasn't working. I had to trust that it was working. And that was really freaking hard.
I can imagine, especially being in an environment that wasn't super, super supportive. Like, obviously, your family members and people close to you want to make sure that you're safe and you're secure and you're happy. And so, seeing you go after something that has previously not done as well as you expected, understandably, they might not be incredibly supportive of it. How did you get through that period? What was driving you?
The biggest thing that was driving me, to be completely honest, was my own ego. It was, I had to prove to myself, I can do this. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what my results from the past have shown. I'm going to do this. And you guys are going to be coming to me asking me how to do it. That's how good it's going to be. It's kind of an ego thing, honestly. And then after that, it was like, I actually really just enjoy it. Like, even if I do fall down sometimes, I really enjoy building businesses. I enjoy learning. I enjoy creating things that can help other people. Like, I just really, really love it. And I always say, like, even if I didn't get paid for this, I would still do it. I wouldn't do it in the same capacity, I don't think, but I would still do this work because I love this work and I love the work of building a business.
And so, you help An incredible number of women and people build businesses. And I know entry level businesses, there's some key milestones that people aim to achieve. It's, 5K months and it's 10K months, 100K years, and then people build from there. I feel like the level that you play at and the playing field you're on, um, obviously it's a lot more income than that. And I feel like people go, oh, if I could just get my 100K year, I wouldn't have these problems or X, Y, Z. And I think despite the level of income that you make, there are still problems. The problems are just different. And so I'm interested to hear what sort of challenges do the clients who you work with who are operating at that next level, what challenges do they currently have in their businesses? What problems are they talking about?
I think the big Yeah, because there's still problems always. I always say like you'll have bigger income, sure, and you'll have bigger problems. And but the thing is you get better at learning how to actually deal with problems, how to handle them, how to navigate certain situations. So a lot of my clients who are, at the six-figure month, multiple six-figure month level, they're the problems that they're actually dealing with is trusting themselves to go even bigger, actually having the desire to go bigger, because some of them are like, well, I already make like $200,000 a month. Why should I try to have $300,000 a month? Like there's a lack of desire sometimes that comes up, or a lack of feeling worthy of receiving more. So there's worthiness stuff. There's also the whole pedestal thing. Once you start making a certain amount of money, people tend to put you on a pedestal, which is not where we should be putting anyone. And so that can create some problems in the business, the problems with clients and the type of people that end up hiring you. Different things with clients as well. So a lot of the questions that I get from my private clients are, how would you handle this? Or how would you respond to this? Difficult conversations, difficult situations, that type of thing, and really navigating things. So there's a lot of this is why I say it's a lot of energetic work in the one-on-one more so than strategy, because a lot of times my clients will come to me and they kind of get the strategy to a certain point. They have my programs, they have all these other things, they've done it. Strategies are pay, but they want to know, how do I deal with this client who just defaulted on a payment? How do I handle this conversation with a client who's going through this kind of thing and this other client is going with that kind of thing? So it's a lot of like emotional intelligence work that we tend to do, and a lot of leadership stuff that we go through.
Yeah, and I loved how you mentioned that clients will ask you, how would you handle this? And I think that's really key to leveraging a mentorship is going, I have this wealth of knowledge in front of me. What questions can I ask about how they would approach situations? What can I learn from them? Can I try this one on for myself, or how can I create my version of that with them? What other ways do your clients leverage those mentorships? Is it mainly just making sure they ask the right questions, or is there other support that you provide them as well?
It's a lot of questions, sure, for certain things that come up. There's also like not only questions about them and their business or situations they're going through, but I have a lot of curiosity with my clients as well, where they'll say, "Hey, I saw your post about this. Why did you say it like this? I saw your launch for this offer. Why did you do it like that?" So really understanding why I'm doing certain things, which is key, and it's one of the like greatest questions you could ever ask any mentor. And I feel like a lot of the time too, in our one-on-one conversations, it's a lot of big dreaming. I call it like big dreaming talk. And I do this with my own mentor as well, where it's like, let's just talk radical results right now, like things that feel so crazy, so out of the box, so, what most people would call impossible. Let's talk about that and let's like plan a celebration. Let's plan for your $1 million week. Let's plan for your like sold out launch. Let's plan for your $500,000 client. Like these numbers that are so insane, truly. Let's let's start celebrating it now. Let's start planning the party that we're gonna have. Like let's start making these big dreams a reality. But making those big dreams a reality starts with actually believing that we can do it, that we can make it happen. So there's a lot of like what if, why not kind of conversations and thinking of big things together.
And I feel like this next question is sort of like asking you to choose like which is your favorite kid, but do you have any big moments or big dreams that you've helped your clients achieve where you're like, holy shit, that was incredible? Like any super memorable moments like that?
there's a lot. And I don't know that I can, well, actually I can. Okay. So I have one client and last year she had her first ever $1 million cash month. And before she had this $1 million month, we actually met in person and we hosted like a training together and we just talked about big numbers. We were talking about like my $1 million month that was, right around the corner and her $1 million month that was right around the corner and or going to luxury stores and buying, just random little things like sunglasses and stuff like that, like little things and just talking about all of the potential that was out there. And then we did this master class and it was all around wealth and being really blissful in wealth and having the most incredible experience, creating wealth and supporting others with wealth. And then I ended up getting COVID while she was there and had to separate myself from her. And much as that sucked, it was actually the greatest gift because it allowed me to really process everything that we had gone through over the time that she was there and I was able to be with her and do our class together. And we were talking to each other while she was in one room and I was in another. We were texting each other. And then soon after she had her $1 million month, right after we were having these big conversations about $1 million months. And then she went and had her $1 million month, which was really exciting.
That's incredible. And it's interesting hearing you talk about $1 million month. Like you can tell there's obviously a great deal of respect and admiration for that, but just the way it rolls off your tongue, like she had $1 million cash month. And I feel like that also is an indication of just the level that you play at. And I guess what conversations are normal in your world too. Like to some people, if you go, hey, I'm going to have $1 million cash month, people would be like, bitch, you're dreaming. And I feel like that's just normal conversations in your world.
Yeah.
What other normal conversations would you say you have in your world that potentially aren't conversations that people who are, let's say, a 100K business? I think that's, a pretty big milestone for some people. What conversations are you having that those 100K year people aren't having?
Well, anything to do with money for sure, like big numbers. Like one of my favorite things that I do with my team is every time we're in Boxer together every day, sometimes for a long time, sometimes for a little bit of time, but every day we say something where it's like today we're like happy $1 million Monday, let's go make $1 million today. Like we'll just say things like that and it's so casual because we know that it's happening. We don't know when or how or anything, but we know it's happening. So like those types of things, it's not really conversation. It's more so just a conversation starter, I suppose. But we're also having conversations about conflict in business. We're having conversations about difficult emotional situations that happen in business. We talk about the whole pedestal thing because most people end up getting to that point as they're growing. We talk about a feeling of passion in business because sometimes once you've hit big milestones, the passion starts to fade. Like, okay, I did the thing I said I wanted to do. So I guess I'm done now. So there's a little bit of that. And so we have, again, big dream conversations about what's next. What can we create next? What can we do next? What can we look forward to next? So a lot of stuff like that. And I also find when you're at the level of 5K months, 10K months, even up to like 100K months, it's more the strategy that's really important. Like, here's how I need to build the foundation of my business. Here's the type of content I need to create. Here's how I need to position myself. Here's, what my brand needs to share with people, how I need to communicate with people through my brand. Here's the kind of offers. Here's my sales strategy. Here's how I can build an audience. Here's the mentorship relationship I want to have with my clients as well as with my mentors. Like it's those types of, I don't want to call them like basic conversations, but in some cases they are like basic conversations that everyone needs to have. And then once you get beyond the basic conversations, which are important conversations, once you get beyond those, then it's just, okay, and now what? And then that's when it does get to be really, really fun, where it's like, okay, I've made $100,000 in a year. Now what? Now let's do two. Now let's actually, you know what? Let's just go to five. Why even bother two with two? Let's go five. Like then we start to really play with it and have more fun. And we can even look at the way the business structure is and how we can make it even better in the sense of how it performs and how you feel in the business. Like we get to play around with it and tweak things to make them even more next level.
And even hearing you speak to all this, one of the words that's coming to mind is abundance. I feel like you genuinely believe that there is
Mhm.
abundance of everything out there. Like,
Yeah.
talking to having $1 million months, it's because there is more than that money out there for the taking. And what would you say to
Yeah.
the word abundance, and what role does that word, if it does, play in your business world?
To me, abundance comes or goes hand in hand with freedom, where it's like there's an abundance of everything. There's an abundance of money, sure. There's an abundance of love. There's an abundance of joy. There's an abundance of ideas. There's abundance of resources. There's just an abundance of all things. And what I find most people do is they look for the lack instead of looking for the abundance. But if you look for the abundance, you'll realize that you can have $5 in the bank account, but you're one of the richest people you know. Like you have so much abundance in other areas, but so many people focus on the lack and what they don't see or what they don't feel like they have. And that's where we can really put ourselves into this little corner of, poor me, I had nothing. When really we actually have more than we give ourselves credit for.
And I feel like the poor me, I have nothing is probably not a person in your world. Is that probably correct? You probably got a lot of big dreamers, big ambitious people who believe in the abundance, or is there some coaching you need to provide your clients on that?
It's mostly clients who aren't like that. Sure. I would say a good 90% of my clients don't think like that. But occasionally, yes. But that's when I need to kind of slap some sense into them very kindly of you actually have a lot more and stop it. Like stop saying that. But we kind of fluctuate as human beings. It's like no matter how much we've created, it's like, but I haven't created enough. I created a lot, but I haven't created enough. Like I remember when I had an $800,000 month, and I was mad at myself that it wasn't a dollar month. And my mentor was like, "Shut up, don't say that again." And then I realized how silly that sounds. Like some people don't even make $800,000 in a year or in their lifetime. Like, and I'm here complaining that I only did it in a month. I was like, yeah, that's silly. So it's like bringing it into perspective for ourselves.
100%. And I'd be interested to hear from you too. I mean, it seems like you're also passionate about growth and just finding out exactly what you're capable of. I'm interested to hear, will you ever, is there ever going to be a point where you're like, yep, I've achieved enough. I'm good now. Or is this a constant pursuit you see yourself going on forever?
I will never stop. Definitely not. And I've thought about this where it's like, will you retire or will you stop doing businesses? Will I get to a point where I don't need to? Yes. But why would I stop doing something that I love doing so much? Like unless I stopped loving it, which would be odd. But if I stopped loving it, then sure, I would be like, okay, I'm done now. But I honestly think I would be so freaking bored. I think I would be so bored. The idea of not building a business, working on a business, like the idea of that to even take money out of the equation, I think I would rather die. I just no, no. It keeps me alive. It makes me feel alive to build something.
And so, how do you ever get the feeling that, I mean, you mentioned the example before with your mentor that you haven't done enough. And I guess what's your relationship with enough? Like, how do you keep the motivation in check, knowing that you're working towards goals? If I guess the goalpost is constantly moving, I think that's a challenge a lot of ambitious people have is, when will I have done enough? Or from just workshopping this out loud with you, is it a sense that you know that you're enough innately within you? Everything else that you're doing is just an exploration of your limitless capacity to what you've mentioned before.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is letting myself continue to explore. So it's not like, okay, I need to hit another milestone or I need to go bigger and bigger and bigger. It's I desire to go bigger and bigger, sure. But if I don't, I've done some little things and I can be proud of that for the rest of my life if I never do it again. Like I'm good, but I want to keep thinking bigger. I want to keep trying new things, but I'm not putting any kind of pressure on myself to do it in a certain way or on a certain timeline. It's just, I just want to grow. And so if I'm thinking money, like I may double my money. Like one year I make this, the next year I make double. And then the next year I don't make double, I make 10% more. I'm still going to be happy with 10% more because it's still growth. And it's not even just money, it's also growth with who I am as a person, my confidence, my capacity to hold more, my even like as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, like I always want to grow as a person. That's my goal.
Yeah. And so, out of interest, what are some big dreams you have for yourself at the moment that you're working towards?
I don't want to call them goals because I don't set goals really.
Yeah.
I have just desires that I'm walking towards. So for me, the desire that I'm walking towards is more spaciousness is a big one for going into 2024 is more spaciousness so that I have more time to be with my family, more time to take care of myself and do things that I want to do for myself that I've been putting off for a little while. And even more time that I can work on my business, but work on certain areas of my business that I've been neglecting a little bit. So more of that spaciousness. And then the other one that I'm just always walking towards, and I've been walking towards it for years now, is I want to have my animal sanctuary where I rescue farm animals and save them and give them their forever home. That's been a huge dream of mine for a really long time. So that's another one as well. That one I think is still going to take a few years just because mentally I don't think I'm ready for that yet, but it's coming.
That's so incredible. And I'm interested, I love how you phrased it. You have desires that you're walking towards. And I'm interested to hear how, for what reasons you're looking to, I guess, shift away from goals and have those desires that you're working towards. There's clearly an energetics or a language thing there. I'd love for you to dive into that in a bit more detail.
Yeah, the word goal for me, I attach a timeline to it. Whether I want to or not, my brain just does that. It's a goal. Okay, well, what do I need to do to make it happen? And make it happen by the end of the year or make it happen this month. And for some people, that works really well. For me, it does not. For me, it creates a whole bunch of pressure. And that pressure actually makes me kind of repel the thing that I really am desiring. So I can't set goals. It just does not work for me. But instead, I just feel into the excitement of the anticipation for it, where it's like it's coming. And I'm so excited for when it comes. I'm so excited. Like even my animal sanctuary, I think about like what boots I'm going to wear because it's going to be a farm. It's going to be muddy. I'm like, I'm going to have to wear boots. I'll sometimes go and like research what boots should I buy? What boots look good? Like things like that where I'm like preparing for it and getting excited for it. It's just not happening yet, but it gets me into the right mindset, the right energy for it.
Yeah, 100%. And I love what you said that goals have that set timeline, and I guess we're taught a framework to set smart goals, and I wrestle with that one a little bit too because I think deep down there's sort of person, and you're definitely this is if you decide to do something, it's not a case of if you're going to do it, it's just a matter of when. So you don't need it to be time bound to know that you're actually just going to do it.
I also find if something's time bound, we can sometimes do things that maybe aren't the right things to do to make something happen faster than maybe it's meant to happen for us. So for me, I don't mess with timelines. Like if it's meant to happen this year, it will. And if it's not, then it means it's not supposed to. And me trying to force it to happen at a time that it's not supposed to happen for me, it's going to create some not so great things. I used to do this with goals, especially money goals. And this is where I would take on clients that I was like, I don't think this client's going to be the right fit. I don't really like this person. I don't like the way they're acting. And I would take them on because it would help me to hit my money goal. And it was horrible. It was horrible for the client and it was horrible for me as the mentor with the client. And I was like, I would rather just not. I would rather not have that goal accomplished. And so that's where I started to just kind of walk away from the whole goal thing and instead say, I want to work with the most incredible client. And that's what I'm choosing. And if that means that I have 10 clients who sign up this year or one client or 100 clients, then I'm open to that. But there's no pressure anymore.
Even just hearing you speak, all of your language revolves around just limitless. And you're not pigeonholing yourself with a particular client or a particular way to earn income or a particular way of doing things. You have it sounds like you have the intention and you put the desire out there and you're just open to all the wonderful ways that it's coming towards you. Does that sound like it's resonating with you?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. That's why my brand is the Limitless Woman. It's like limitlessness in all areas. And this was actually my issue with I tried to force things not only to happen on a certain timeline, but in a certain way. So if somebody was like, okay, or like I say, this is my goal, and they say, okay, this is how you do it. I would do it like that and I would try to make it work when really that was not the correct way for me. It's what worked for them, but it wasn't the right way for me. And so it never was going to end up working anyway. So now I just give myself that freedom to let things happen when they're meant to happen, how they're meant to happen. I still do my part. I still show up and do what I know how to do to help move things along, but I'm never trying to force it to happen in a certain way.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's also such a beautiful gift that you give your clients as well through the mentorship. It's ask me the questions. I'm going to share some. I know the strategy that works, and if that works for you, great. But otherwise, I'm here to ask questions, and you have the ability to really create whatever business you have that you wish for yourself too.
Yeah, and a lot of times the stuff that my clients come to me for when it is strategy is not like how do I do things, but or how do I do something, but how do you do this thing? This is the thing I want to do. How did you do it? And then they take from that conversation whatever feels good to them and they do that and they leave the rest. It's like I can say, well, this is how I attracted my first client. And they say, okay, well, that actually sounds horrible. I don't ever want to do it like that, but I'm going to do this instead. Right. And then they do it their way. So like they figure out what I did, why I did it that way. And then they take what really works for them and the rest, they just let it go. Like not everything that I did is going to work for my clients the same way it worked for me.
And so, on that note, if someone's got a business, potentially they they've got their first 100K year, and they're looking at what's next. What would you do to help scale to that next milestone? Let's say the 500K. I think that would be a huge jump for someone. Something that you have done quite successfully. I would love to hear what's something that someone could do in the next 24 to 48 hours to start that journey to scale, and why would you do that?
Okay. So 100K to 500K year is really just more offers. That it's just having a more diverse offer suite and then getting those offers in front of people more often. So a more diverse offer suite and money pathways, which is essentially just different ways people find those offers. Offer stacking. So taking one offer and turning it into multiple offers so that people are buying multiple things instead of just one thing. So it would be a lot of really big strategy work like that. There would also have to be brand refinement as well. Getting to 500K, even like $1 million plus a year, you need to have a really brand presence and people need to know who you are and what you're about within seconds of finding you. So there would have to be some work on the brand as well.
Branding and sales is what I'm hearing, and selling is such an interesting one. Hey, I think I mean, you do it so incredibly well and so incredibly seamless. And I think people get so stuck in their head when it comes to sale. Like I posted my offer once and no one's bought it. It's like, yeah, cool. Um, of course they haven't.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even, I mean, I get it is what I'm trying to say. Like, I get it because that was me. I really struggled with sales in the beginning. I didn't understand it. I didn't want to be what everyone was calling salesy. I didn't want people to think I was desperate for money. And that's why I was always selling things. Like, I didn't want to be seen a certain way. Like, that was really what it was. And it wasn't until I realized how valuable selling was for my client, like me selling you something that I know is going to help you change your life. How selfish of me to keep that to myself. Like, like that's selfish. That's greedy is keeping all that information to yourself when you know it can help someone else. So once I really understood the value of selling, then I was able to really start talking about my offers and my services so much more because I saw the value in it. But yeah, most people will get very much in their heads about it. And 9 times out of 10, the reason nobody's bought your offer yet is you didn't talk about it enough, or you talked about it enough, but they didn't understand the value of it. That's usually what it is.
And I love the way you phrase that too, because I think that also helps you to make sure that you're being authentic within your business too. If you're really creating something that you love and that you truly think is valuable to your audience, yes, you should have no issues talking about it all the time because it's of genuine value. It's when you might not be rock solid in what value you have to offer as a coach, what audience you speak to, all that sort of stuff. And that's where, as you mentioned, you touched on branding before, can really support that as well. So I do see those two going hand in hand, a really strong brand, really clear identity of who you are as a coach. And then, as you mentioned, all the strategies that go along with selling all the amazing offers that you have to create under that.
Yes, exactly. And every strategy is going to look different for everyone. But for most people, offer diversity, offer stacking, and creating money pathways for those offers is going to serve pretty much every single human being in business, especially service-based business.
Awesome. And so thank you so much, Cassie, for jumping on today. And I loved hearing about a little bit behind the scenes. I'm sure there's a hell of a lot more that goes on to building a multi-8-figure business and just the incredible success that you've had. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and a bit behind those curtains with us today. If someone is interested in learning more about the work that you do and potentially diving into your world, where can they best find you?
Instagram. I would say Instagram for sure. I'm all over the place, but Instagram is where I tend to hang out the most. So it'd be Cassie Howard Biz on Instagram.
Perfect. And I'll put that in the show notes too. And you should definitely head over to the Instagrams and check out all those offer seats and just how Cassie shows up on social media. It's next level. Like if you're in business and currently at the 100Ks, 200Ks and just want to see what it takes to hit that next level, then do yourself a favor.
Come and see me. I
Awesome.
got
Well,
you.
thank you. Thank you so much again, Cassie, for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me today for another episode of the Actually You Can podcast. I so enjoy having you here, and I hope you've taken away powerful insights and tools that will support you to achieve your high-level results. Now, before you go apply all of this wisdom in your life, I would be so grateful if you are able to leave us a podcast review on the platform that you're listening to, or share this episode with a friend. Your support means that we can help more self-led, high-performing individuals just like you expand what's possible for them. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on today's episode, so please go on and shoot me a note on socials and let me know what you think. You can find me on Instagram at Miff Galloway. Now, go ahead and make those dreams a reality, because actually, you can.